that's a heck of a way to show respect, to manipulate a document. I'll tell you what they do with you in the United Kingdom if you play with a contract. They throw you in prison.
Another project I'm hoping to work on in hopefully later this year is the origins of the virgin birth. I actually have your two books in the bedroom back there. Um, I think you've said on past videos that I've watched, originally it was referring to Hezekiah. Is that correct?
No, I think, and I'm doing a little bit of mind reading here, I think you're conflating Isaiah 9 with Isaiah 7. Isaiah 9 is not about the virgin birth. So, no, Isaiah chapter 7, so for your viewers, Matthew in chapter 1, in the infancy narrative, in his version, he says that Jesus' virgin conception was predicted by the prophet Isaiah, and he completely misquotes Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, where there's no mention of a virgin, no mention of any of that stuff. And Matthew just changes the words, rips the passage out of context. It's referring to not to Hezekiah, but it's referring to an event that traumatized Hezekiah's father, Ahaz. It was a civil war between the southern kingdom of Judah. Ahaz was the king, and the northern king of Israel, Pekach ben Rumayahu, who allied himself with Ritzin, who was the king of Syria, and Jerusalem was surrounded, and God gave a sign to Ahaz, the king of Judah, the southern kingdom, through Isaiah, of when the two kingdoms who you fear will be destroyed. And it's not even the birth or conception of the child. The sign is the maturity of the child. It's Isaiah 7, 15 and 16. Butter and honey will the child eat when he knows to reject bad and choose good. For before he knows to reject bad and choose good, these two kings will be destroyed. So it has nothing at all to do with the Messiah. The word virgin isn't mentioned there. And guess what? If you're not studying Hebrew, and if you're a Christian, you're not learning Hebrew as a child. You're just not. I don't care what Christian school you attend, they're not teaching children Hebrew, then you're relying on the King James and you're dead. You have no chance of figuring this out. You've got to have access to the original Hebrew. The Hebrew word for virgin doesn't appear there. That word is betulah. The word there uses alma, which means a young woman. Incidentally, it's young women who have babies as opposed to old women. Now, it doesn't mean, like in the English language, that a woman can't be a virgin. She might be, she may not be, but there's nothing about the word woman that conveys someone's sexual history. Young woman only conveys a gender and an age, young and female. That's it.
So it's not correct then. Maybe I read this. I thought some people said that virgin and young woman can be the same word sometimes, but you're saying that's not true?
No, it's never true. We're going to do something that I never do, but I want to do this right now because I want to use the English language. Because if you're watching this show, if you're a viewer, that means you understand English. Let's use the English language, okay? Let's use the word woman, okay? And let's use and have the word virgin, okay? So when we say the word woman in the English language, what are we conveying? It's a female, right? We wouldn't call a toddler girl, a 5-year-old girl, a woman, right? So she's, older than a child, a baby. But a woman only means a female, okay, in the English language. This really is not complicated, okay? I'll ask you this question, Dale. Can a woman, someone who is called in the English language a woman, can a woman be a virgin?
Yes.
Of course. But does the word woman convey that she's a virgin? No. tells us nothing. So that's the same deal. It's really, people make things complicated, and my job as a rabbi is to make things that appear complicated really simple. This really is not, you don't need to go to rabbinical school to figure this out. The word alma simply means a young woman, okay? That's all it means. Elam is the masculine version of that. David is called an Elam in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 56. David is not a virgin, I assure you that. Okay? So, all right, so let's work this through, okay? The word alma simply means a young woman. That's all it means. So what we're going to do is, I don't often do this because I often emphasize the importance of going to the original Hebrew, but I'm not going to do that because I want to make this really easy. A woman might be a virgin or might not be a virgin. There's nothing about the word woman that conveys that. Now, if the whole point in Matthew 1:23 and Christians think in Isaiah 7:14 is to convey that the woman never had sexual intercourse with a man, if that's the whole point, you wouldn't use the word woman, you'd use the word virgin in English, right? If I wanted to convey to you, a Brit, if I want to convey to you that woman has never slept with anyone, ever, what word would I choose to make sure that you and I know exactly what we're talking about? If that was the point, I would say that woman is a virgin. I would not say she is a woman, right? I mean, this is really not complicated. In Proverbs chapter 30, an alma is an adulterous woman who fornicates with a man, with a gever, with a man. It's right there in Proverbs 30, verse 19 and 20. So let's just make something that everyone is all confused about really simple. Of course, a woman, I want to talk English now, forget Hebrew. A woman might or might not be a virgin. There's nothing about the word woman that conveys it. Now, can a woman be a virgin? Of course. Rebecca is called an alma, and she happened to be a virgin, but we're told about her virginity in another passage entirely. So there's nothing about the word woman that conveys sexual history. The only thing we could say about a woman is that she's female and she's not a child in the English language. That's the same thing in the Hebrew language. It's really that simple.
Do you think Matthew, what's the best way to word this question? There is some train of thought that people view Tanakh as sort of having a double fulfillment, a double prophecy. One would be in Isaiah's time and then one would be in Jesus' time. But if the word is not virgin, I suppose that couldn't be the case then.
You actually get yourself in more trouble when you lie. We all know this. It's the cover-up that gets everybody into trouble. When you make up dual fulfillment excuses, you actually create a new problem. It's like everything in life. We don't want to lie to cops because we know we're not smart enough to cover our footsteps. That means people who are law-abiding people who get pulled over by a cop really don't want to lie. They don't want to lie because their moral compass tells them not to, but people also don't want to lie because they don't want to get caught. And you have to be really smart to be a liar, as Mark Twain said. He didn't say it as elegantly as I did, but you have to be James Bond. Why is he so amazing? Because he's lying all over the place in his movies, and he gets away with it and can keep track of everything. Okay? So if you claim dual fulfillment, which is nowhere in the text, you've now got yourself into a lot more trouble. Now you become a Richard Nixon. Why? Because if you're hiding the tapes, you then have to explain who the first virgin was. If the word alma means a virgin, and then you claim a dual fulfillment, tell me this. If Jesus was the second virgin birth, what was the first virgin birth? Who was the first virgin? And there's no answer. It's checkmate. It's end. Never lie to a rabbi. You understand the problem? Number two, look at Isaiah 7, 14, 15, and 16. If, in fact, this was fulfilled twice, if you read it in context, you see this is nonsense, but it was fulfilled twice, who are the two kingdoms in the time of Jesus that were cut off, that were destroyed when the child matured? Really? When Jesus knew to reject bad and choose good, these two kingdoms that you abhor will be destroyed? Really? When did Jesus mature? It makes no sense at all. This only works from a church pulpit where parishioners are sitting there and they just listen to the ramblings of Christian screeds and they just take the priest's word for it. They don't bother looking it up for themselves. They really don't. When I discovered this about Christians, I started to like them as a youngster. Before that, I thought they were all insane. Now I really care about them because I realize what happened to them. They've been lied to, and they are not equipped to respond. Well, you could learn Hebrew in London and in Leeds and in Manchester. Sure, when you're 19 years old and you get admitted to a university and to a college, you then could take biblical Hebrew. It's too late. You're a committed Christian by then. And what are you going to do? Take 1-2 courses in biblical Hebrew? Sure, there are a few nerds who study biblical Hebrew and get doctorates in it, but very few people do that. So Christians are not equipped to be able to discern between chaff and wheat. They have no idea. They're clueless. And they don't, let's be honest, they don't read the book of Isaiah from beginning to end. They may, some of the more dutiful Christians might go through it. They don't know what they're reading. They have no idea what the Afro-Syria war is that took place during the Assyrian Empire. They have no clue. They just read through it and have no clue what they're reading. Isaiah is a very difficult book, my friends. I mean, it's not if you understand. It's like anything. If you understand it, it's fine. I'm doing a class now on YouTube on the whole book of Isaiah. If you understand it, it's really easy. But Isaiah is not written like the book of Joshua. You can't just read through it. It's almost all poetry, and not in a Shakespearean sense, but it's all symbolic language. Not all, but of 66 chapters, 60 chapters are just a very dense language of symbolic language. And once you know what's going on, you can understand. If not, you'll just be completely lost. I mean, try it. I challenge people, just open up the book of Isaiah and just try reading the first 5 chapters, and you'll be lost completely. This is not like reading the book of Judges or the book of Kings. It's a very different kind of literature. And so Christians are just lost. They have no idea. And I don't blame them. I understand the problem.
When New Testament writers then quote Tanakh, be that Matthew or anyone really, you've sort of claimed in past videos that they've sort of twisted and manipulated the words. Is it not the case at all that they've, had great respect for it or great inspiration from it? I mean, I can't answer the Matthew virgin. Is it possible that Matthew was just working with what he had? I mean, some say he was writing to a Jewish audience somewhere.
That's a heck of a way to show respect, to manipulate a document. I'll tell you what they do with you in the United Kingdom if you play with a contract. They throw you in prison. If you're an attorney, if you're a lawyer in the United Kingdom and you forge documents, you play with the original, you get disbarred, you lose your license to practice law in the United Kingdom. Same thing goes for the United States. No, it's exploiting and weaponizing the Hebrew Bible in order to convey a Christological message. This is not something to be admired. Don't behave the way, we don't know who wrote the book of Matthew. We know who wrote at least 7. I think we know who wrote 9 of the 13 epistles attributed to Paul. Don't emulate these people. Don't emulate and don't admire bad behavior. This was a criminal act of changing the Jewish scriptures in order to make it appear Christological. Do not buy what your pastor and priest tells you that they were simply reading from a Greek translation called the Septuagint. This is a lie. The original Septuagint was only the 5 books of Moses. It wasn't the book of Isaiah. Okay, the Septuagint, I write about this extensively in Volume 1 and Volume 2. The Greek translations were added to, reworked by the church to make the words of Matthew conform to Isaiah in the Greek. Okay, this is a criminal enterprise. This was not good behavior. Paul does this all over the place. This is not the sort of behavior that you should admire, look up to, and Matthew is showing contempt for the Hebrew Bible, but he's using it, he's exploiting it, because he wants to evangelize Jews. That was his purpose. He failed. His writings influenced non-Jews. That wasn't his targeted audience. But Matthew demonstrates clearly that he was willing to weaponize the altar, to change the words, to rip passages completely out of context, even invent verses that don't exist, phantom verses. Paul does the same thing in 1 Corinthians 15. He just makes up stuff that isn't there. Like Jesus rose on the third day according to the scripture. There is no scripture like that. None. Paul made it up. And I want to say this to you, ladies and gentlemen. These evangelists are not the sort of people you should admire, and these are not the sort of people that you should seek to emulate.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא